Hello and welcome to my Let's Win Science on Deity in Civilization 6. In this video series, I play the game on Deity and win a science victory. I will along the way explain how you win a science victory, as in mechanically how it actually works, but also in how to optimize your game and how to have a good chance at winning it. Everything I say here applies to DT, but also to lower difficulties, just like the normal difficulty, which is Prince, or even lower than that. So if you follow along with the things I explain in here, you should have a good chance to win a science victory on any kind of victory. So it already starts with the civilization that you pick. There are some civilizations that are really good for science, and I mean technically none of the civilizations is bad at science, since they all can build science districts and stuff, and the land plays also a big role, like the land you have when you start. But of course there are some civilizations that cater a lot of benefits towards a science victory. For example, Scotland is quite decent for science victory. I would argue not the best. But I think for me it's better if I choose not the best, but just a good one to show how it works. Now with Robert the Bruce from Scotland, the major trait he has, let's quickly go back here, then I can show, is this one. Happy cities receive an additional 5% science and 5% production. Science and production is key for a science victory. Science obviously, but also production is really important, because a big part of the late game is producing space victory stuff. I will explain that a little bit later. He also gets in Happy Cities extra +1 great scientist point per campus and extra +1 great engineer point per industrial zone. Obviously great scientists are amazing for a science victory. And the engineers, well, some of the engineers are amazing for science victory, and admittedly some others are completely irrelevant for science victory. It's still nice to have those. And ecstatic cities double these amounts. So wait, happy cities, ecstatic cities, what is this? Amenities affect the happiness of your cities. Once we are in the game, I will show where you can read your amenities and your happiness and check how your cities are actually doing. Amenities you mostly get by hooking up luxury resources. There are a few additional ways that I will show when we're in the game, and I will show how they affect this. Usually I wouldn't recommend to pay too much attention to how happy your cities should be, because it's very easy to have them just at the content level, and penalties you only get if you go really far down, and that nearly never happens. Excuse me for my sneezing and nose cleaning. It always happens during this time of the year. Pollen allergy. So then the war declaration thing up here is not very relevant. Most of the time it doesn't come into the game. Then the golf course is more for a tourism and culture victory here, but it also gives a little bit of amenity and even housing a little bit later. So this is a nice improvement. And the Highlander is a unit. Well, if you go for war when you unlock the Highlander, I would say you're doing something wrong. Unless, of course, someone declares war on you, then this unit could be useful to defend your land. Although I would argue there are a bit easier ways to defend your land. So, Scotland is useful, but I said there are better civs at science. Yes, there are. Gilgamesh is okay for science. Many think he's amazing, but I'd argue it's just okay, because his only benefit for science is the ziggurat, a tile improvement. It can't go on hills, and that's a problem because hills give the production, and I just said you need science and production, and that can be a little bit tricky with the land, because sometimes you have a lot of land for ziggurats but not enough hills for production, and sometimes you have a lot of hills for production but no real land to build a ziggurat on. And what you want with Gilgamesh is a mix for both. Then you can have a strong production and science game. I would recommend that. So Gilgamesh is about on par with Scotland, maybe a little bit less good. Then John Curtin. Australia is amazing for science. And the main reason is here. Yields from campuses, commercial hubs, holy sites and theatre squares are +1 in tiles with charming appeal and +3 in breathtaking appeal. What does this mean? First of all, the campus is affected from this, and the campus that gets +1 or even +3 on top of its normal benefits is amazing. So, a campus usually gets adjacency benefits from, for example, mountains. So if you would have a campus, let's say, adjacent to 4 mountains, the campus would be +4 science, give you 4 science every turn. Now, if the tile the campus is on is also breathtaking in appeal, there is on the bottom left above the minimap a lens that you can turn on and off, and among those lenses is also the appeal lens, which shows you in green highlights which tiles are more appealing and which are less. Also, when you hover over a tile, there will come a tooltip and show how appealing a tile is. So I for one know mountains give additional appeal to the tile next to it. So if a tile already has 4 mountains next to it and gives that campus that +4, there's a very high chance that the tile is also breathtaking in appeal. So you get as Australia an additional +3. So that +4 campus becomes a +7 campus. 7 science out of 1 campus. And there are policy cards that double this. So the +7 becomes a +14. Instead of only have a +4, that becomes +8. So you get a +14 campus at some point. That's ridiculously good. That's why, in my opinion, Australia is one of the best science civs. Even the best science civ if you have the land for it. Just as I said, mountains are great. If you play Australia and want to go for science and you have not a single mountain in your land, just restart. There is no shame in restarting if you want to try out a fast victory or if you're struggling a bit with the game. Just take a better start. If your start is flat and there's no mountains, it's terrible for science. And will make your game a lot more harder than going up difficulties. I will say that just now, in my opinion, a bad starting location makes the game much more difficult than turning the difficulty up. I would argue a game on Emperor with a great starting location is much easier than a game on Prince with a terrible starting location. In my opinion, the starting locations affects the game more than the difficulty. Of course, a garbage starting location on Prince may not be as hard as a great starting location on Deity. But I would say 1 or 2 difficulty is not as big of a deal as a starting location. Especially if you play someone like John Curtin, who works all with that appeal that is important for him. Then also Japan is very good for science because he's very safe. All districts receive an additional standard adjacency bonus for being adjacent to another district. What does that mean? That means when you build the campus district next to another district or a city center, it gets +1 science per district and city center. So if you place your science center, your campus next to your district, maybe a commercial hub district and an industrial zone, and your city center, it will have +3. If you have a city that is relatively close, it can also add its campus next to that campus and give it therefore +4, and because that campus is next to its city and next to that campus, it gets already +2. Build also the commercial hub and it's already +3, and the other campus maybe even +5. If you put all your districts in clumps as Japan, you get amazing districts. You have an easy time to get +3 and +4 on your districts. That's why Japan is really a good civilization to just play the game, because you will never have bad districts no matter the land. Similarly good, at least for science, is Korea. Korea, I mean, look at all these science icons here. She must be good. And yeah, she is the best science civ in the game. She is not as straightforward as others, as like Japan, but she is outright broken for science. And the main reason is the Seowon. It's a district unique for Korea, and that replaces the campus. This means the Seowon has only half the production cost. All unique districts only cost half the production of the normal districts usually would. So she builds the campus in half the time. That's already great on its own. And then it also gets no adjacency like the campus otherwise does. So forget all the mountain adjacency, forget all the district adjacency, forget all the jungle adjacency that a campus district gives. The Seowon works different because it always gives +4. It has always the 4 adjacency, no matter where you place it. But, well, there is some importance. First of all, it has to go in hills. So if you have an utterly flat land, again, flat land is bad for science. Korea doesn't need the mountains that I before said are super important for science. Every civilization that wants to go for science is quite depending on mountains, except for Korea and Japan. They managed to pull off a good science game without. So Korea always gets 4. Important is here. The 3 kingdoms. It means mines receive +1 science if it's adjacent to a Seowon. Again, mines can be built on any hill or on mining resources like silver or copper or gems. And therefore, if you can place a Seowon on a hill that is surrounded by other hills, you can mine them all up and get even more science. And if you have farms next to it, they get +1 food, which is nice. But if you have like a place surrounded by a lot of farms, maybe even wheat and rice, or a Seowon surrounded by a lot of mines, maybe even an iron or a copper, choose the mines. Always choose the mines for the Seowon. Because the Seowon has an other effect that isn't stated here. It gets a negative, a -1 to its science if it is adjacent to another district. So if you place the Seowon and then place like a commercial hub next to it, the Seowon gets worse. So make sure that the Seowon is isolated, if possible surrounded by mines, or at least have some mines adjacent to it. And the other districts you just build maybe at the city center on the other side of the city. It's important to get some other districts, but if you get like 8 cities out and all of them have a Seowon and all of them can keep the +4 Seowon, and you get also the card that doubles that, that's 8 times 4 times 2. So that's 64 science already without having built any libraries or anything and any mines. 64 just from 8 cities having the Seowon. 64 science. That's a lot. And it gets even better with Korea. That's so good for science. Governors established in a city provide +3% culture and 3% science for each promotion they have earned, including their first. So a governor in a city unpromoted gives the city +3% culture and science. Already good. If you level the governor up, for each level up you give it, it gets additional 3% science and culture. So a governor can be leveled up 5 times, up to 5 times, and has a base level, so it's 6 times you can get this bonus. That's up to 18% culture and science you can give the city. If you have that city with all the mines around the Sion, put a governor in there and level it up. Pingala is recommended. Pingala and Korea, they have an amazing relationship. Combine them. Once I'm in the game, I will explain which governors are good and why. I will also go through the world wonders, if some of them are good, and if so, which ones. And of course I will go through the land, how it affects the game. Now, like I said, for Korea it's quite different because the unique science district works different. I want to give an honorable mention to the Maya. Many people think the Maya are amazing, but also many people think the Maya are very bad. I think the Maya are amazing if they have amazing land. And if they don't have amazing land, they are garbage. Why so? I will explain this very quickly. The observatory is like the Seowon of Korea, a replacement for the campus district, and removes all its normal adjacency. The observatory works like the following. It gets +2 science for every adjacent plantation and +1 science for every 2 adjacent farm or district. So if you surround it by farms or districts, you get +3 science. Now if we compare that with Korea, Korea doesn't need to do adjacency and it gets +4, already better than this. Now, but plantations give 2. If you have 6 plantations, that's +12. Yes. But that's the problem. Plantations is a resource. And there will never be a perfect circle of a resource. The best I got so far is 3 plantations in a way that I could place an observatory in the middle of them. That's +6. That is really good, I admit it, that's really good. That's comparable with Korea's +4. Korea also gets the other science benefits, don't forget that. So for the Maya to be better than Korea, they need better than +4. But usually you just get 2 plantations. And I've started with Lady 6 guy for the Maya, and on some starts I had no plantation. And that's what I mean with you depend on the map a lot. If the Maya don't get any plantations, then the observatory has a maximum output of +3. That's not really that amazing for a maximum output. Even Japan with any land can get better than +3. As soon as you have your 4th district adjacent to that campus, Japan will be better than the Maya. Unless the Maya of course have their plantations. But it is a bit similar with John Curtin, only that John Curtin has a better chance at having those +7, +8, +6 campuses. Because if you have John Curtin and get your mountains, and mountains are a bit more likely than plantations, I would argue, then you get those ridiculously good districts. Now I will go with Scotland, because I generate more scientists, which is good, and also a big part of the game. And I want to explain that. And also the passive +5% science and production, which can go to +10%, which is pretty good. Although, like I said, I would argue Japan, Korea, and Australia are better for science. Oh, I forgot one. The Netherlands are also a great science civ. Again, kind of a little bit like Australia, on a similar power level. They need the proper land for it, but if you get it, it's amazing. I have on this YouTube channel another playthrough as the Netherlands where I go for science. So if you're curious for that, look for that and watch that. It will surely help you as well. Although I explain a lot less in that. Why is the Netherlands good for science? Major adjacency bonuses for campuses, theatre squares and industrial zones if next to a river. That means a +2. So if my campus is next to a river, I get +2. Now +2 isn't that amazing. Yes, but this is in addition to its already existing adjacency bonuses. So if I also get some districts next to it, maybe the campus is also next to mountains or geothermal tiles, then the district can go up to +5, +6. It's not as crazy as Australia can be, but it's at least a little bit easier than Australia is to pull off. And you can, at worst, if you have a river, you get campuses similar to that of Japan. So Australia is also really good. If you have like a river and also 2 mountains next to it, you can place the campus there. 2 mountains give it each +1, so 2, and the river gives it 2, so in total +4 campus. Put the card in, +8 campus. That's really good. And rivers are usually rather long and a bit common on the map, so you should be able to wombo combo some of this up. Well then, let's start the game as Scotland. Where is he? For the map setup for this game, I have chosen Pangea. I will go with abundant resources, so we have some more stuff. And I think I will leave the rest as it is. You can, of course, create this a little bit more beneficial. You could make the world age new, so you have more hills and mountains. Well, you know what? This is supposed to explain how it works. So let's make it a little bit beneficial for us. Especially if you're struggling with this victory type. There is no shame in catering a little bit more to the victory type, so you better understand how it works. If the game gives you the option to max it out, it's easier to understand how things work. Like, how would you ever figure out how the science adjacency works with mountains if you have just a few games without mountains on your land? You will not be able to practice it. While if you cater the map a little bit in that direction, then it works. So more hills and mountains is really good for us, of course. For every science game, you want mountains, and more hills is good for the production, like I explained. You could also go even as far as do the balanced or the legendary. I will leave this for now at standard. You can also do the rainfall to wet. That means more wood, rainforest and marsh. That's good, because wood, rainforest and marsh you can always remove for benefits of immediate food and production. Really good to have more of that, while arid means less of that. With the temperature I wouldn't do much, because cold just means more tundra and less desert. Unless you're Canada or Scotland, you don't want more tundra. Tundra is just worse. And hot is of course more desert. And unless you're like Mali or maybe Nubia, you really don't want more desert, because desert is a really terrible land for any kind of victory. So we leave that at standard. So that is it, and we start now as Scotland. I see you in the next episode, where we start with a start, and I will explain how the start, what makes a good start for a science game. See you next episode.